Welcome to Twilight, Quill, where shadows speak and secrets linger in the dark. Tonight, we invite you to step into a world of mystery, suspense, and terror. Let the whispers of the unknown guide you as we begin another haunting tale. This is The Red Veil, written by Mira Winters, part 1 of a chilling trilogy that will stay with you long after the last word. Dim the lights, let the story take you.
The Red Veil by Mira Winters. The ballroom gleamed like a painting come to life, chandeliers dripping with light that scattered across polished floors. Elena hesitated at the grand entrance, her fingers toying nervously with the black lace mask that covered her face. It had seemed so thrilling when the invitation arrived, an ornate envelope sealed with crimson wax and a single line scrawled inside. Your destiny awaits at Ravenwood Manor. Midnight holds the answers. But now, standing in the glow of opulence and mystery, a strange unease prickled at the back of her neck. She didn't know who had sent the invitation or why, but curiosity and perhaps a need to escape her mundane life had drawn her here. As she stepped inside, the hum of conversation and the swell of strings enveloped her. Everyone wore masks, from jewel-encrusted pieces to elaborate creations adorned with feathers. It was beautiful, dazzling even, but there was something off. A heaviness in the air, like the room itself was holding its breath. "Elena," a voice whispered low and velvet soft. She turned sharply. A man stood in the shadows just beyond the light of the chandeliers, his mask a deep crimson that matched the rich fabric of his tailored suit, though the lower half of his face was obscured. His eyes gleamed through the narrow slits of his mask, sharp and unrelenting. "How do you know my name?" she asked, the words escaping before she could stop them. He stepped closer, offering his hand. His movements were slow, deliberate, as though the entire room had bent to his rhythm. "I know many things about you," he said, "more than you might wish." She should have turned away. Every instinct screamed at her to leave. But his presence was magnetic, his hand warm against hers as he drew her onto the dance floor. The orchestra struck a waltz, and Elena found herself moving in perfect synchrony with him, though she'd never danced like this before. The world around them blurred, the room dimmed until it felt like they were the only two people there. "Why did you bring me here?" she asked, breathless. "You were always meant to come," he said, his voice low. "This place calls to you because it knows what you are." "What I am?" she echoed, her brow furrowing. He smiled, a sharp, fleeting thing that unsettled her as much as it drew her in. "You'll understand when the clock strikes midnight." The music swelled, their movements growing faster, sharper. His touch burned through the fabric of her dress, and a strange heat spread through her chest, as though something inside her was stirring. "I don't even know who you are," she said, pulling back slightly. "You will," he promised, his gaze unrelenting. The waltz ended, and before she could ask another question, he vanished into the crowd, leaving her breathless and alone. In his place, a single red rose lay on the floor. She bent to pick it up, but the moment her fingers brushed the petals, blood seeped from the flower, warm and sticky. Her breath hitched as the blood pooled at her feet, spreading outward in crimson tendrils. It formed words, jagged and unnatural, as though scratched into the marble by an unseen hand. "Trust him, and you die." Elena stumbled backward, the rose slipping from her fingers. The ballroom seemed to shift, the light dimming further until shadows consumed the edges of the room. She turned, searching for the man in the crimson mask, but he was nowhere to be found. "Elena!" The voice came again, closer this time. She spun around to see him standing at the far end of the ballroom, near the grand staircase. The rose was back in her hand, though she had no memory of picking it up. "Stay away from me!" she shouted, her voice trembling. "I can't," he said, stepping closer. "And neither can you." The chandeliers flickered, and the air grew cold. Shadows began to stretch across the floor, moving like living things. They coiled toward her, whispering in languages she couldn't understand. "What is this?" she demanded, her voice breaking. "The Pact of Shadows," he said, his tone grave. "They've been waiting for you, Elena. You're their final piece." "I don't believe you," she said, though her chest tightened with fear. "You don't have to," he said, his eyes darkening. "But if you leave this place, they'll come for you, and there will be nothing I can do to stop them." The shadows closed in, and Elena stumbled toward the staircase. Her pulse pounded as she realized the other guests were gone. The ballroom now empty except for her and the crimson-masked man. "What do you want from me?" she whispered. "To protect you," he said, his voice softer now. "But I can only protect you if you stay by my side." The rose in her hand began to wither, its petals crumbling to ash. A sudden pain flared in her chest, as though invisible hands were gripping her heart. "Let me go," she said, her voice trembling. "I can't," he said, his own voice strained. "They won't let me." As the shadows reached for her, Elena's eyes darted to the grand mirror at the far end of the room. She caught a glimpse of herself, but her reflection was wrong. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow and dark. And behind her, the man in the crimson mask stood with a smirk, his reflection somehow clearer than hers. The clock struck midnight, the chimes echoing like a death knell. The last thing Elena saw before the shadows consumed her was the man's hand reaching out, his voice a whisper in her ear. "Now you'll know the truth."
You've just listened to The Red Veil, written by Mira Winters, part 1 of the Red Veil Trilogy, a tale brought to you by Twilight Quill, where shadows come to life and stories linger long after the last word. Twilight Quill is the creation of husband and wife duo Mira Winters and Elias Blackwood. Together, they weave tales of terror, suspense, and mystery, drawing you into a world where every shadow hides a secret. Mira brings a modern, romantic edge to horror, while Elias delves into the Gothic and sinister. Together, their stories will leave you breathless. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Twilight Quill for more haunting tales and quick scares in our YouTube shorts. Share your thoughts in the comments. Did the Red Veil send chills down your spine? And stay tuned for part 2, The Crimson Reflection, coming soon. Until then, beware the shadows.